to join a league, as opposed to, hey man, you want to just join my football league kind of thing.
So with football, it's easier to sucker somebody into a bad trade than in fantasy basketball.
It all depends. All those types of things have to do with the league that you're in, who's in them. You could be in a fancy basketball league with very knowledgeable people, and you may not be able to make any trades. I'm in some leagues like that where there's maybe 2, 3, 4 trades that go down all year because no one wants to make a trade because they're overanalyzing everything and they know all the stats. And you could very well have a trade in football that you could have the same thing though. In basketball is the opposite. There's always a few guys in the league you could always trade with. There's always guys in some of my leagues that I'm constantly making trades with and ending up with a better result. I think though that you'll find that when people aren't as knowledgeable, that sometimes they're afraid to make trades like we talked about before, and that can be frustrating as well.
What is the biggest difference between bad owners in fantasy basketball versus bad owners in fantasy football?
I don't know if there's a big difference. I think if you're a bad owner in any fantasy sport, there's a lot of similarities, and I don't think there's really a huge difference. Maybe a couple little small things, but I find that if you're a bad owner, it's usually spans across all the fantasy sports, the reasons why you are.
What is, in fantasy basketball, what is the biggest mistake people make come draft time?
Come draft, I think just not coming prepared at all. I think that, and that's true in any sport. I think this day and age, you have to have a game plan. You can't just wing it. You have to do some sort of studying or research. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you have to have at least an idea of what you're going to do, whether it's mock drafting or reading a season preview in a magazine or asking people on Twitter advice, whatever it may be. You have to have a plan. And I think that nearly anyone who goes into any type of draft without at least having a firm grasp on depth charts and injuries and sleeper players and rookies is not going to draft well, and in turn, usually they're not going to have a good season.
When you research for fantasy basketball, what's your, I guess not what's the strategy, but where do you do most of your research? I guess I don't want to give away any of your secrets, but
there's not really a lot of secrets. There's quite a few websites that have stats or ways to gather stats. BasketballReference.com, BasketballMonster.com. It could be as simple as just looking at the player card of your player on ESPN or Yahoo or whatever it may be. Basketball, I would say, it's definitely not at the level with digging up stats as baseball is, but I think that there is actually a little bit more, in my opinion, than there is in football. I think a lot of the research goes into ability more than numbers themselves, and I find that basketball is sort of in between those two, where you can get stats, but you're also not going to be finding the crazy sabermetric type things that you do find in baseball.
With basketball, there's teams like the Grizzlies and Hawks who are big into advanced stats now. How does that affect you when making a trade? Or are you more likely to make a trade for a guy that's on a team that's into advanced stats, or how do you gauge a player based on what organization he plays for?
I don't know if I follow that question really.
Like with the Grizzlies, they're really big into it, like the advanced stats of the true shooting percentage and all that stuff. And the Hawks have gotten big into it too, which is part of their success. How do you, like, if you're made a trade offer from an organization, a poorly run organization, a player from a poorly run organization versus a player from an organization like the Hawks or like the Grizzlies they're big into those kind of, break it all the way down to the nth degree stat. How do you gauge those type of players?
I'm not really gauging them much differently. At this point in the season, I think you kind of know what a player's been doing and where they're going, and you can sort of read the trends. Whether or not the Hawks use advanced stats or not, Paul Millsap's still a top 25 player, and I kind of just got to go based on that. Just go based on the minutes that these guys are getting and the value that they've been putting up, or you expect them to put up.
Who is somebody right now that you would trade for to make a long-term commitment to in a keeper league for fantasy basketball?
I mean, there's quite a few guys. I mean, I think the most obvious player is Anthony Davis. But yeah, this league's filled with young talent, very, very good young talent, and anyone from Damian Lillard and Davis to James Harden and Stephen Curry. I mean, all those types of guys. I mean, those are hard players to trade for. But I think anybody that is under 26, 25 years old that's, already a top 50 player, I think is always worthy to be trading for.
If you owned a guy like LeBron James, would you dangle him?
In a keeper league, yeah, he's a good trade bait depending on what you'd be getting in return. It depends, I think, also where you see your team. If you're a competitive team now, he may not be a guy you want to trade because he's going to help you this year, and he will help you next year. But if you're struggling and you're looking for to build your team in the next 2, 3, 4 years, yeah, sure, I think he's definitely a guy that I'd put out there in trade offers.
What do you think, how much do you think you could get in return just for the name LeBron James? Like, do you think you could, what do you think you could pull off in a LeBron? Like, if you were owning LeBron James, what would you take in return for him?
In a keeper league?
Yeah.
Or just, again, I think it all depends on the situation. It depends which owner you're dangling him in front of. Is he an owner that is playing for now? Or is he an owner that's playing for the future? Or what kind of team he's trying to assemble? It's hard to really say keeper-wise, just to be able to throw out names without kind of seeing the other team's makeup that you're wanting to make the trade with. But in a regular league, a non-keeper league, you can definitely get quite a return. I think I traded him in one league earlier in the year, and I like what I got back.
What did you get back?
If I can remember offhand, I believe I traded LeBron, Jose Calderon, and Patrick Beverly. In return, I got, I know Josh Smith was one of them, but that was when he was still on the Pistons. He was kind of like the last guy on the deal. And trying to remember who the other two were. But, Blake Griffin, Josh Smith, and Brandon Knight. That was the trade for LeBron, Calderon, and Beverly. So I really liked that trade at the time. Smith hasn't been great lately, but even I would trade LeBron straight up for Griffin and Knight. So I like that deal.
When you look at, like, players that get criticized for their player efficiency ratings, whose player efficiency rating has the least effect, positive or negative, on their fantasy numbers?
I haven't looked at the PERs lately, but if you're a high volume guy and you're putting out complete stats, even if the field goal percentage is down, You're going to be a good guy to own. I mentioned Russell Westbrook earlier. I'd imagine his efficiency rating isn't great based on his field goal percentage and the fact that he's not hitting threes and he turns the ball over. But look, if you're getting almost 2 steals a game, you're getting 20-something points, you're getting 6 rebounds, I'm okay with that. I'm okay shooting 41% if you're giving me everything else. James Harden, his field goal percentage hasn't been amazing, but look, he's an MVP candidate because he's doing everything else. And I think you have to weigh the good and the bad, and whether it's worth the poor efficiency to get all the other counting stats.
Well, Seth, before I let you go, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internet, all that good stuff?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm Seth Klein. You can find me on Twitter at Seth the Sportsman, SETHDASPORTSMAN. I'm on there 24/7, late night, early morning, any time of day. I pride myself on trying to answer pretty much 100% of the questions that followers send me. So follow me and ask me to start, sit, trade, draft advice. I do all 3 of those sports except for hockey, and baseball's coming up, so I'm already answering baseball draft questions. And you can also find my writing at razzball.com and my rankings at fantasypros.com. And I'm good for about 1 to 2 podcasts a week. So if you follow me on Twitter, I'm usually promoting all the shows I've been on. So you can listen to me on those various shows as well as yours.
Have you ever dipped your toe into fantasy NASCAR?
I have not, no. No.
I don't even know how that works.
I don't think I even want to know. The furthest I've gone, when I was younger, I was actually into hockey. I'm not anymore, but I was a big fan when I was younger, and I used to play fantasy hockey back in the day. And I've done a couple of the back in the day on ESPN. They had like salary cap type stuff for college and things like that, but that's really as far as I got. No fantasy NASCAR, golf, or WNBA or whatever for me, but I stick with the top. I have enough going. I have up to 40 teams sometimes year round on cumulative for football, baseball, and basketball, so that's enough to keep me busy.
Yeah, that sounds like enough to not have to force yourself to watch NASCAR or follow NASCAR, and that's a good thing.
I think I've probably watched 30 seconds of NASCAR in my life.
Yeah, and even that 30 seconds, you feel like you've gotten a little bit dumber while watching it.
Yeah, right. And I think those 30 seconds were probably just a clip of a crash or something that was on the news.
Yeah, well, at best it was. Well, we will be right back here on the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com with headlines.
It's really on fire. Mommy, 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 tell me what the hell is wrong. I got a little girl that really wants to know me. I got a little girl that really wants to blow me. Mommy, 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 tell me what the hell is wrong. I don't mind at all. No, I don't.